The Diabolical Khazars, the visible players behind everything that is unfolding in our daily lives. A concise history lesson. I posted the video on the Diabolical Khazars, part 1 and 2, in February of 2021. A little over a year later, I posted this video on the Nazification of the West. I included in this latest video a Ukrainian song with subtitles in English, French, and Spanish because it deeply touched me with sadness. This video came to me from a very close relation, and it only cemented my knowing that 30% of the population are deeply unconscious and therefore will never wake up. They are in this deep hypnosis, which only deepens with every biological death shot they receive. The Khazars are the visible players behind everything that is unfolding in the theater play of life, every day in front of us. I feel that this short history of the Khazar should be known by the 30% that are awake right now, and the 40% that still have the potential to wake up out of unconsciousness. Please share these videos as widely as you can. I believe that each one of us can contribute to the accelerating evolution of human consciousness so that we achieve the needed critical mass of individuals ready to make the colossal evolutionary leap and transform into the next species, the divine being. Hola! It is very important to know the complete history of mankind, because without this knowledge we cannot understand why we are experiencing the current madness. Humanity is in a monumental dead end. In reality, it is an evolutionary crisis. Instead of fighting this process, why not make a 180-degree turn in the other direction? The curtain rises to reveal in full light the Khazarian Mafia and its evil plan to infiltrate and tyrannize the whole world, eradicate all Abrahamic religions, and replace them with their Babylonian Talmudism, also known as Luciferism, Satanism, or Baal worship. The history of the Khazars, originally from the region of Ukraine, and particularly that of the Khazar Mafia, the largest organized crime syndicate in the world, into which the Khazars oligarchy was transformed through the use of magic Babylonian money, has been almost completely redacted from the history books. We know that the Khazarian Mafia is waging a secret war against America and the Americans, consisting of false flag operations, and through the unconstitutional Federal Reserve System, the IRS, Private Income Tax Service, FBI, FEMA, Civil Security, Homeland Security, the Homeland Security Service created in the aftermath of September 11th and infiltrated by Israel, and the TSA, Transportation Security Administration. Between the 1st and the 8th centuries, an incredibly evil society emerged in Khazaria. The Khazars evolved into a nation ruled by a malicious king, versed in the occult sciences and Babylonian black magic. During this period, the Khazars acquired a reputation among neighboring countries as murderers, bandits, and usurpers of the identities of the travelers they murdered. Around 800 AD, Russia and other neighboring countries issued an ultimatum. The Khazarian king was given a choice between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. The Khazarian king chose Judaism. Despite this agreement and promise, the Khazarian king and his inner circle of oligarchs continued to practice Babylonian black magic, also known as occult Satanism. The latter included secret ceremonies of child sacrifices, the blood of which, after exsanguination, was drunk and the heart eaten. The deeply buried secret of these occult ceremonies was that they were all based on an ancient cult of Baal, also known as the cult of the owl, the symbol of the Bohemian Club, one of the manifestations of the Cabal. In order to mislead the Russian-led confederation of Khazarian watching countries, the Khazarian king mingled these Luciferian practices of black magic with Judaism and created a satanic hybrid secret religion known as Babylonian Talmudism. It became the national religion of Khazaria and generated the same malice for which Khazaria was known before. By 1200 AD, Russia and neighboring countries had had enough and decided to act. The Russians led a group of countries surrounding Khazaria to invade it in order to put an end to the crimes of the Khazar against their people. The crimes included the kidnapping of young children and babies intended to serve for the bloody sacrifices of the cult of Baal. The Khazars rulers had a very extensive spy network which warned them in time to flee Khazaria to Western Europe, taking with them their enormous fortune in gold and silver. They kept a low profile and regrouped, assuming new identities. The Khazarian king and his court vowed to take revenge on the Russians and their neighboring countries who invaded Khazaria and ousted them from power. Khazarian Mafia invades England after being kept at bay for hundreds of years. To accomplish this invasion, they recruited Oliver Cromwell to assassinate King Charles I and make England a safe haven for the banking system. They instigated the English Civil Wars, which raged for nearly a decade, 1642 to 1651, and ended in a regicide of the royal family and hundreds of members of the former English nobility. This is how the City of London was created as the banking capital of Europe, and the foundations of the British Empire were laid. David Icke was the first to bravely expose the Rothschilds in plain sight of hundreds of people. This, of course, makes him an international hero, and we would need more courageous people like him to break the cover-up surrounding the Khazarian Mafia and end their illegitimate world power. David Icke, Revelations, Arizona Wilder. The Khazarian Mafia decides to infiltrate and hold the entire world banking system hostage using Babylonian black magic, also known as Babylonian money magic, or the occult art of creating money out of thin air using usurious rates and accumulated interest. Eventually, the Khazarian king and a small court infiltrated Germany with a group that chose the name Bauer to represent them and perpetuate their evil Baal-backed system. The Bauers of the Red Shield, which represents their occult bloody child sacrifices, later changed their name to Rothschild, aka Children of the Rock, Satan. Bauer Rothschild had 5 sons who infiltrated the European banking system: German, English, Austrian, French, and Neapolitan, and the City of London Central Bank through several well-designed covert operations, including a false report of Napoleon's victory at Waterloo, when he had been defeated. This allowed the Rothschilds to use fraud and deception to corner the wealth of the English nobility and landowners who made investments through the City of London banking institutions. Nathan Rothschild's stock market coup. On June 20th, 1815, the day after the Battle of Waterloo, Nathan Rothschild achieved a remarkable stock market coup. Informed of the Napoleonic defeat well before the authorities, he went to the London Stock Exchange and put all his securities on sale. Everyone thought that Napoleon had emerged victorious and, overcome by panic, followed the example of Nathan Rothschild. The stocks dropped at breakneck speed. Rothschild waited until the last minute, then bought everything back and thus consolidated the family fortune. The Battle of Waterloo was the best move achieved by the Rothschild family, who had already developed at that time a perfect system of espionage and mail throughout Europe. On June 20th, 1815, one of their agents arrived directly from the battlefield, informed Nathan Rothschild of the defeat of the French. Nathan hurried to the London Stock Exchange. He made it seem by selling all his English consul shares that England had lost the war. The rumor spread so quickly that most of the shareholders panicked at the thought of losing everything, sold their English consul shares. After a few hours, the value of the shares had fallen to 5 cents. So Nathan brought them back for pittance. Soon after, official news of the outcome of the war spread to London. In the space of a few seconds, the price of the English consul exceeded its original value and did not stop rising. Napoleon had his Waterloo, and Nathan had gained control of the English economy. In one night, the already gigantic fortune of the Rothschilds had multiplied by 20. The Rothschilds established a private banking system that specialized in issuing counterfeit money out of thin air by charging usurious rates on the British for the use of what should have been their own currency. It was an application of Babylonian silver black magic. Once they had successfully infiltrated and held the British banking system hostage, they intermarried with the British royal family and infiltrated and completely held all of England and its major institutions hostage. In the 17th century, the Khazarian Mafia murdered members of the British royal family and replaced them with their own men. In the 18th century, they assassinated the French royal family. Just before World War I, they assassinated Archduke Ferdinand in order to start the Great War. In 1917, they assembled a Khazar army, the Bolsheviks, infiltrated and took Russia hostage, coldly assassinated the Tsar and his family, killed his favorite daughter with bayonets, and stole all the gold, silver, and the artistic treasures of Russia. Just before World War II, they assassinated the Austrian and German imperial families. They got rid of the Chinese imperial family, and they stripped the Japanese imperial family of its power. They did the same with the American presidents by carrying out covert operations to strip them of power. If that's not enough, the Khazarian Mafia assassinated McKinley, Lincoln, and J.F. Kennedy, 3 of the presidents who opposed the Khazar bankers. The Rothschilds created international drug trafficking on behalf of the Khazarian Mafia. It was the Rothschilds who ordered the mass extermination and genocide of the indigenous peoples of North America to allow the exploitation of the continent's vast natural resources. The Rothschilds followed the same economic model in the West Indies and the Indian subcontinent, resulting in murder of millions of innocent victims. The Rothschilds entered the international slave trade, a business that viewed kidnapped humans as animals, a vision the Khazars would impose on all inhabitants of the world who were not part of their malicious circle, which some refer to as former black nobility. The Rothschild bankers learned early on that the wars were a great way to double their fortunes in a short period of time by lending money to both warring parties. But to be guaranteed reimbursement, they had to pass tax laws, which could be used to compel payment. Remember, personal income tax was introduced in France shortly before the First World War. The Rothschild Khazarian Mafia banksters' plot was to seek revenge against the American settlers and Russia for helping them with the War of Independence. The Rothschilds and the British oligarchs plotted to reclaim America, and this became their main obsession. They hatched plans to establish an American central bank using their Babylonian magic and counterfeit money. In 1913, the Khazarian Rothschild Mafia succeeded in its attempt, through corrupt and treacherous members of Congress, to pass the illegal Federal Reserve Act without the required quorum on Christmas Eve. The act was signed by a corrupt, purchased president, Woodrow Wilson, who was a traitor to America, as were the members of Congress who voted for it. The Rothschilds Khazarian Mafia then created an illegal tax system in America. The Khazarian Mafia set up an illegal, unconstitutional tax system. It's easy for the Khazarian Mafia to raise enough money to elect whoever they want, because when you control a central bank that acts like a secret counterfeiter, you have all the money you want. Around the same time, they created their illegal tax system. They also bribed members of Congress to approve the Internal Revenue Service, which is their own private collection tax service in Puerto Rico. Soon after, they created the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to protect the banksters, serve as a cover for them, and prevent them from ever being prosecuted for their child sacrifice rituals and pedophile rings. The Rothschilds Khazarian Mafia unleashed the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which it had been plotting for many years since the destruction of Khazaria, by incredible bloodthirsty savagery on innocent Russians and Ukrainians. The Bolsheviks, under the direction of the Khazarian Mafia, raped, tortured, and massacred nearly 100 million Russians and Ukrainians, including women, children, and babies. The Rothschild Khazarian Mafia once again decided to disappear in plain sight to infiltrate and hold all of Judaism hostage. They set up a new world order system called World Zionism that thought and installed a paranoid illusion of racial superiority in influenceable Jews, which assumed that all Gentiles intended to slaughter all Jews. The system was intended to operate undercover for the Jews, but also to provide them with the power of Babylonian money in order to use them as middlemen before sacrificing them to Lucifer in 2 stages. The first was to sacrifice them in Nazi labor camps during World War II, planned by them, resulting in the death by hunger and disease of approximately 200,000 Jews. The second great sacrifice would be the ultimate sacrifice, when the Luciferian king of the New World Order would come to power and when all 3 Abrahamic religions would be eradicated, especially Judaism, on which would fall the responsibility for all the wars and destruction of the world. A compilation of all the statistics shows a decrease of 6 million of the European Jews population before and after the war. From the total, the immigrants from Europe must be removed. It is estimated that nearly 4 million Jews died in the camps, including 1.5 million in Auschwitz. Commemorative plaque. The Yad Vashem Memorial in Israel lists 4.3 million names. It is important to understand that the Rothschild Khazarian Mafia completely destroyed Germany after World War I, thus creating a political vacuum in which fascism was engulfed. only to rebuild it, create Nazism, and install Hitler as counterweight to Russian Bolshevism. We see the same thing happening today with the Khazarian war on Islam, because Islam forbids usurious rates. This is why Israel is so aggressive in destroying Muslims around the world. The Khazarian Mafia predicted that World War II would be significant and that by supporting both warring parties, it could serve to industrialize the whole world and maximize the profits and powers of their banksters. The Rothschild Khazarian Mafia has since developed this classic scheme of staging false flag events as normal procedure to induce Americans to wage wars on behalf of the Khazarian Mafia. After the end of World War II, the Khazarian Rothschild Mafia developed the Cold War and used this as an excuse to bring Nazi scientists and mind control experts to America through Operation Paperclip. This allowed them to build a global intelligence and spy system that went far beyond their previous attempts. Rothschild banking model. The Rothschild Khazarian Mafia established the Nazi concentration camps as a pretext for being able to subsequently manipulate the Allies into helping them obtain their own private settlement in Palestine, using land stolen from the Palestinians. The Khazarian Mafia was thus able to use its so-called self-proclaimed Holocaust to act as a trigger to refute and resist any criticism of the Zionist way of doing things. Once the Rothschild Khazarian Mafia acquired its own territory in Israel in 1947 through its political shenanigans, it began to regard the whole of Palestine as its new Khazaria, and to plan the genocide of all Palestinians in order to recover the whole of Palestine on their behalf. Recent genetic research by a respected Jewish physician at Johns Hopkins University revealed that 97.5% of Jews living in Israel have absolutely no Hebrew DNA and are therefore not Semites and have no blood ties with Palestine. Conversely, 80% of Palestinians have ancient Hebrew DNA and are therefore true Semites with blood ties to the Palestinian territory. The Khazarian Mafia used its financial power to take control of all schools of allopathic medicine. They created the American Medical Association and other medical associations to ensure that their plans, based on lies and deceit, were to come true. The leaders of the Khazarian Mafia decided to use America to complete their final conquest and occupation of the whole world by unleashing a huge false flag set up inside America and place the blame on the Islamists. They want America to attack Islam on their behalf. So the heads of the Khazarian Mafia used their binational Israeli-American citizens, Israeli first, living in America, aka the PNAC folks, and neoconservative leaders, to plan a nuclear attack on America on September 11, 2001. Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu, the operational chief of the Khazarian Mafia, deployed the Mossad and these binational citizens to mount and execute this attack on America, which was to be blamed by the mainstream media on the Muslims. In part 2, I will present the most recent information. However, it is critically important to pay attention to the following information. And now, are they going to succeed with this COVIDian pandemic? It is very important to know the history of mankind, because without this knowledge, we cannot understand why we are experiencing the current madness. Humanity is in a monumental dead end. This is an evolutionary crisis. It is the end of it is the end of the human species, the end of the intelligent animal. Each individual must make the choice to stop participating and nurturing this horrible illusion, which we believe to be our reality. It is time to dream about the next step, the new eidesic species. We have to see the gift that this pandemic represents. Thanks to it, an awakening of consciousness is taking place. Some of us focus on an inner revolution, while others take to the streets. To each his own solution. The important thing is not to fall into inertia and depression. We are in the midst of this pivotal time where the old world is still apparent as the new divine matter grows within our very bodies. We forget our spiritual purpose and become outraged at the lies of our politicians about the COVIDian situation, when the time has come for the next step of human destiny, the new eidesic species. Will you choose to align with the divine plan or the Luciferian plan? The only solution is very simple. I must connect to my true self, my soul. Easy to say, not at all easy to do. Please go into action now and make the choice between listening to your ego mendacious mind and the external authorities, or listening to your soul, the internal authority. I consult and offer tools so that you can find your individual solution by making contact with your soul. Your soul will then effectively guide you through the upcoming, long-lasting, turbulent transition. Infinite love. It is up to us not to comply, yet have compassion towards others no matter where they are at on their evolutionary path of consciousness. Every day I must reinforce my resolve to move forward on my evolutionary path towards the new species. From hell on earth to paradise on earth. We are building what many said was impossible. The evolution of how we create and travel starts here. Please consider joining us in our consciousness community at the edge of the town of Popayan in southern Colombia. This is an invitation for a long-term stay at Cascada Cafe Retiro in Colombia. The insanity continues to intensify, and there is no end in sight. I believe that now there are individuals who are ready to leave their country of origin, but just don't know where to start. There is absolutely nowhere to hide. Having said that, in Popayan there is good food growth throughout the year. The temperate mountain climate is 22 to 26 degrees Celsius during the day and 13 to 18 degrees Celsius at night. And it is like this all year round, which makes life very comfortable here. Please share this information with your friends and loved ones. Uprooting yourself is certainly not for everyone. I have the possibility of making this difficult process just a little bit easier. There is a guest house for long-term stay while you are looking for property of your own. Pets are welcome, and there is internet. The airport, the bus station, and the city are only 13 kilometers away. Will you join us in this paradise on earth? We welcome all conscious individuals. If your soul is pushing you forward, please consult www.freedomtravelalliance.com. I consult by phone and offer tools so that you can find your individual solution by making contact with your soul. Please share my videos so that this information can reach the people who need it. My contact details are in the description below, as well as a link to Cascada Cafe Retiro and my website. Finally, please subscribe to my other 3 channels, BitChute, Odyssey, and Crowdbunker. All of my videos are not available on YouTube. Infinite love.